Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Child, Deputy Director General in DG Research and Innovation, with my colleague Hans van Steen from DG Energy. We're very, very happy to welcome you to this panel discussion on Europe's clean energy future. And I don't think there could be a topic which is more high up on our agenda than this at the moment. We've heard President-designate van der Leyen setting as a sort of framing objective for the next Commission, the Green Deal, and everything that we're doing within that to support and promote the transition, ecological, social, and economic. And I think that clean energy and the way that clean energy impacts on our societies, the way our societies embrace clean energy, the impact of clean energy in our cities, I mean, all things which are obviously going to be very central to this new agenda for the new Commission. And I'm very, very happy that this is one of the topics that we're discussing together here at the Research and Innovation Days as we work together in this sort of spirit of co-creation on the design of our future framework program, Horizon Europe. And I'm really looking forward to the what I hope will be very interactive and open conversation that we're going to have in the coming hour or so on this topic. And so I think that, having set the scene and welcomed you, I don't want to go into a lot of detail now because I really want to open up a big conversation, but I want to pass over to Hans, who's going to introduce our panelists and I'm sure sort of set a very lively tone for the discussion ahead. Hans.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and also a very warm welcome from my side. I'm from DG Energy. And we too have been looking very much forward to this session here at the RNI Days. It's a new type of venue, but it looks extremely promising from what I've seen so far. I think we're living at very, very interesting times. I think right now there are a number of people who are getting out of bed about 6,000 kilometers from here in New York, and you heard yesterday all the talk about climate change and how nature is angry. But technology is on our side, so I think that's a good and perhaps a less good message. And actually also right now, as we sit here, there's a discussion going on in the Council where the energy ministers are meeting today, and they're exactly discussing R&I issues in the energy sector over their lunch today, and the Commission is there with Vice President Katainen. So it's all really adding up to, I think, a very, very interesting couple of months ahead of us where we are to co-create, as Patrick said, the final Horizon Europe program. And I think the R&I Days are really here to help us do that in a way which takes into account also the views of what you think, you, the citizens, the people from the cities, and the youth in particular. So I don't think I'm going to say much more, because as Patrick, we want to hear from you, and you perhaps don't really want to hear from us so much. So I think without further ado, I'm going to pass over to our first speaker, which is Mr. Socrates Dimitriadis. He is the Vice Mayor of Thessaloniki. I know that. You're also an architect, I was told. So I think you are extremely well placed to guide us a little bit into some of the thinking from your side. What do we need to get the energy transition going? And what is it that we need to get to where we want to be, which is the decarbonized energy economy by the mid of this century? So please, I think you have a microphone, so I can probably put this one down.
First of all, I thank you for the honor of inviting my city.
In Greek?
In Greek. Maybe no one will understand what I'll talk if I talk in Greek. So, cities face a growing range of adversities and challenges in the 21st century. From the effects of climate change, energy poverty, overcoming pollution caused by urban traffic and waste, heating and cooling our buildings, ecosystems, degradation to growing migrant populations, social exclusion, and inadequate infrastructure. Thessaloniki is a member of the network of 100 resilient cities and the Global Covenant of Mayor. The new elected mayor strategy priorities include, among other, the aim to transform Thessaloniki into a resilient, safe, sustainable, and inclusive city through research and innovation that relies on a holistic and systemic approach, breaking cross-sectorial silos. Thessaloniki, by participating in the H2020 smart and sustainable EU-funded projects dealing with energy, mobility, climate, and social innovation aspects, is fully committed to the strategic goals of the European Commission President von der Leyen to make the European Union the world's first climate-neutral continent by 2050. Our strategic plan includes energy-efficient buildings and schools, considering heating and cooling issues, the indoor air quality of double, triple glazing buildings, clean energy programs, green schools. Thessaloniki participates as well in the European Urban Living Labs and all as a health and well-being living lab and adopts a comprehensive R&I approach to realize our goals for 2030 and 2050 and accelerate the transformation of our city to a clean energy and decarbonized city. Whoops. Excuse me. Of the future, in line with the priorities developed in the innovation of city roadmaps. To achieve the targets set out by Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development, the Urban Agenda for the UN and the EU, New Urban Agenda and the Paris Agreement, we promote the full engagement and empowerment of the citizens, young professionals, but also the elderly in the whole process. We would also be happy to contribute to a better alignment between national and local cities, priorities as promoted through the Mission Innovation Global Covenant of Mayors Corporation. We welcome the Commission High-Level Expert Group report on the human-centered city and considering the role of R&I key to transform current urban challenges in new opportunities for economic growth, green jobs, prosperity and well-being, and help our cities to become hubs of technological and social innovation. Our city is trying to do its best in the energy saving. We try to make our buildings better in greener, with green roofs, terraces, bioclimatic changes, in order to lower the CO2 emissions and decrease the energy. The energy consumption. I'm free to receive questions afterwards, I think.
Thank you, Socrates. I think, does it work?
Yeah.
I think it's very important to get the perspective of the cities. I mean, the vast majority of Europeans live in cities, and we've seen that cities are very often ahead of the curve when it comes to actually moving towards reducing emissions and to create a more livable environment for the citizens. So I think the perspectives of the cities is absolutely essential. And so is the perspective of the youth, and I'm very happy we have two youth representatives. I should also have introduced you perhaps at the very beginning. We have Linette Knudsen from the University of Copenhagen, and she will be trying to sum up and give us some reflections at the end of the session. So we're looking forward to that, Linette. But before that, we will hear from Heather McKay. You are a youth campaigner. And you are especially engaged in the field of environment and energy. Mm-hmm. You were also present, I think, in Vancouver,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken, at the Clean Energy Ministerial
mm-hmm.
and the Mission Innovation, where there was a special emphasis on youth, which shows again that this is something that is beginning to be taken much more serious than in the past. So I think, Heather, we'd very much like to hear also your perspective on the key topics that we're discussing here.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I do apologize. I am Scottish, so if anyone doesn't understand, I can only apologise. So I thought I'd start with quite a personal perspective on why I care about climate change. It's actually a result of quite bad parenting. My mother let me stay up late on a kind of a school night, and I watched the whole of The Day After Tomorrow, where Dennis Quaid runs handsomely around, tackling wolves and fighting the climate crisis. So that's put the fear of God into me, and I live every day trying to work towards fighting the climate crisis, so I never have to tackle wolves in a frozen desert tundra. So that's why I'm doing what I do. I currently am the founding project lead at the Climate Crisis Foundation, which is looking to mass mobilize climate finance. We're running a campaign called the Parents' Pledge, which is getting older people to recognize that they have to do something tangible to tackle climate change on behalf of young people everywhere. And the way we're asking them to do that is by giving regularly and in proportion to their assets to climate change charities. So it's quite exciting. I actually started my career at an oil and gas hedge fund, so you don't mention that in many climate activist circles. So as you mentioned, Hans, I also, in my increasingly spare time, I volunteer with a bunch of amazing youth organisations, the UK Youth Climate Coalition, the Youngo UNFCCC constituency, so that's the youth NGO network, and also the Student Energy group, which we went to Vancouver with. So, I mean, I'm constantly inspired every single day by the amazing, intelligent, and passionate young people in the climate space. I'm also disheartened because I often see that there's a lack of recognition of the need to have young people at the table, and also a lack of funding to enable a variety of young people to be at the table. It tends to be a certain type of person who can afford to be there, and so you kind of get a groupthink in a way sometimes, which is a bit disappointing. And I think it's something we can definitely work on. And so what I'd say, kind of in summation to all of that, is there is a growing recognition in my privileged position of as having sat in the kind of financial sector, and the NGO sector, and the youth network sector, the need to include young people and the need to engage in the climate crisis and push towards solutions. However, I think there's also a frustration about how we get there. I mean, the climate change in economics is known as a wicked problem, right? Because you've got to do so many different things harmoniously to tackle it. So I'm just here as one voice to suggest two ways forward. The first thing is inclusion. For any solution, any clean energy solution to be sustainable, it has to be inclusive. Obviously, I'm here alongside Lynette as a representative of the youth voice, obviously big responsibility, so sorry guys if I don't say everything you think. But I think you can see the issues that arise when youth inclusion is just an afterthought or a CSR initiative. If you look at Greta Thunberg's recent speech yesterday, they're incredibly powerful on feeling tokenized in the climate space. I'm going to read out from her speech here. You look to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my childhood with your empty words. And I think that powerful, angry statement speaks to this idea that although people are on the street, young people are on the streets, being as loud as they can, saying that we need to tackle the climate crisis now, they still feel that they're not. These ambitions are not being recognised in the policy space. So I think that's something that we should all go away and tackle. Well, how do we do this? I'm sure you're all thinking, okay, that's a really nice idea, but how do you go and do it? There are, in every single one of your countries, there are fantastically engaged youth networks. Reach out and try and find them. I'm sure they're very loud in social media. Have a Google is the first suggestion. And if you want some more in-depth information, come up to me afterwards. I can link you up. I would also say that there are local conferences of the youth and conferences of the youth every single year, which are basically youth-focused COPs, which happen just before the actual COP. So please get involved. They're always looking for speakers and especially funding. So they can have a diverse range of youth. So I think that's kind of one thing that you can all go away and positively take away. The second thing is that for clean energy solutions, inclusion is not just young people. I actually, in London, met a Brazilian guy on the tube. And I don't know if you've ever been to London, but you do not talk to people on the metro. That's the cardinal rule. And we had a very lively debate about Brazilian administrative policy towards gender and also towards the recent rainforest crisis that's happened. And we went back and forth, and he was using kind of fake news and all this stuff. And we got down to the kernel of his issue, which was that he was from a poor community in the north of Brazil that basically is ignored by international funding and ignored by international development organizations. And he felt really angry that all the attention was going towards another community in the Amazon rainforest with a kind of internationally valuable asset that we need to protect. And so I think that's an example that I took away of the need to make sure any kind of solutions are holistically approached and we bring in all members of the community when we're proposing solutions. So I think that's kind of the two things I took away from that. And I think you see evidence of that going badly, the Gilets Jaunes movement, for example, and that going well. Lynette and I were talking earlier about a community called the Samso Island in
Yeah, Samsu.
Samsu, where they are really engaging with community members to bring everyone along on this idea that they should have 100% renewable energy by 2030, and it's going really well and it's very inclusive. So that's the kind of first tenet. The second thing is funding. I mean, we all know that's the issue. If you look at if you balance climate finance flows internationally, which is around 500 billion, with fossil fuel subsidies, which are 5.2 trillion, according to IMF data, I think it's pretty clear what we need to be doing in order to meaningfully tackle the climate crisis. I'd also say that funding youth participation, I can't hammer it down anymore. I think it's one of the most important things you can do if you really want to have an inclusive perspective in your policy making. So, in summation, and I'd love to have some feedback from everyone as well. I think I drew a little, don't know if you can see it, Venn diagram. And I think solutions. This perspective should be integrated in every single decision-making process for policymakers and every single investment process in clean energy infrastructure. Firstly, you've got to have a future-focused tenet which evaluates both the youth impact and the climate risk. You've got to have an economic tenet that makes sure that every solution you put forward is accessible and affordable and does not harm the poorest in our society. I know one example in the UK was a recent mayor of London proposed a clean air and eco-friendly bridge that was going to be exclusively available to private companies and policymakers. So that's not a good example of that. And the third tenet is international equity. I think we need to remember our privilege here. The fact that we are not the ones who are going to be the most impacted by climate change, at least for in the years to come. I think we need to remember the people in the global south are actually suffering now, and it's their voices that we need to bring into these spaces. So, I mean, the summation of climate crisis is a collective action problem. We can do something if we do stuff together now, but we really have to do, firstly, it together, and secondly, it now. So that's me.
Well, Heather, thanks very much. And I think that the point you make about us all being basically, especially in this room, on the same side, and
definitely.
that we need to harness and work together and mobilize all our collective efforts. I mean, what I often find is that we're having discussions and there's a sort of voice from the youth which is, well, you're not doing enough, which of course we know, but you can help us to help other people to do more. And that's exactly, I think, the message you're sharing with us. We'll move on, I think, to our next item, which is our speaker, Alvaro Beltran, who is a very, very impressive innovator, who is the European Union's Mission Innovation Champion. That's one of a very, very select handful of leading innovators in the clean energy space, who was chosen after a very rigorous selection process and was also with us in Vancouver for the ministerial meetings of Mission Innovation and the Clean Energy Ministerial. And he's going to join us with a 3-minute video message in the hope that by the time that's over, we'll have found Anna Bartolo and she'll be able to round off the session. So if we can show the video, please.
I love solar energy. But imagine this during 1 minute. For every square meter of city, we need another square meter into the countryside full of solar panels if we want to feed this city with solar energy. Are we ready to cut trees in order to install solar panels? Is this a sustainable solution? I don't think so. For this reason, we have developed building materials able to generate electricity in order to convert buildings into vertical power generators. Welcome to the future. Welcome to Onyx Solar.
Hi, I am the founder of Onyx Solar, an innovative company that has developed the first architectural glass able to generate electricity thanks to the sun. Just a few years ago, Onyx Solar was another of those startups that were born in a garage. With not a lot of money, but a lot of energy. That is the most important ingredient for any entrepreneur hungry for success. To reach success is not easy. It is necessary to work hard. It is necessary to overcome many problems. It is necessary to have motivation, to persevere and insist. Onyx Solar is an innovative company that started with just one crazy guy who wanted to convert buildings into vertical power generators. Today, there are 800 persons fighting every day to make this dream come true. We have completed more than 200 projects in 50 countries for many top multinationals and institutions. Now our aim is to offer our multi-award technology to everybody.
Well, I mean, what an inspiring success story. And obviously, we wish him every success with the business, and I think which is a really impressive illustration of the point that, there isn't a choice to be made between economic opportunity, commercial success, and addressing, global challenges like climate change. But the two go hand in hand, and that successful European companies can rise very impressively to that challenge. And if ever he needs a future career as a broadcaster, I think he's got a great future ahead of him. Well, look, I somehow detect that Anna is not with us yet, and maybe she'll join us later. So I guess we can perhaps open the floor to a discussion. Now, this is the first time I've ever done this, but this thing is a microphone, okay? So with this, avoid the usually sort of awkward silence while someone's put their hand up and then the microphone is sort of wandering around. So I'm going to throw this at whoever wants to speak first, okay? So who is that? Or I'll just throw it into the audience and someone else will, catch it. Okay, go on then.
Hi. Okay. Should I stand up?
Yeah.
No, should I stand up?
Yeah, you can stand up.
So, hi everyone. I was very privileged, as Heather was, to be a youth representative in Vancouver with the Clean Energy Ministerial. And from then on, I kind of realized that a youth being present in the room with high decision makers was more of an exception than the rule. So my question is that at an international level as well as a local level in communities, what can communities and municipalities do to include the youth into this discussion? Because from what I could experience in France, we are just known to do sports and to do whatever we do, but not to take part into political decisions. So in which concrete ways can you assure that the youth is represented in such discussions? Thank you.
Can I ask you what you'd like us to do? Or what you would like them to do?
Sure. Because as Greta Thunberg kind of demonstrated yesterday, we are very committed, we are very passionate, we have a lot of energy, and I think that we kind of lack organization and logistical and as well as funding. So it's always something that, like, skill that we're looking for, and like we look for people to educate us on that. And I feel like there's not a lot of people ready to do it. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Someone else want to come in? Yeah, there behind, huh? Yeah, now it's really becoming sort of netball, right?
I couldn't do this. I can't do sports.
So, yeah.
No, but she does sports.
So building, do I need to present myself? No, I probably not.
Yeah, say a word. Yeah.
Okay, well, my name is Berta Mateswey. I'm a senior researcher working at Sintef, an RTO based in Norway. Building a bit upon what it's been said now, just as a kind of brainstorming, maybe a possible way to also include the youth people, I consider myself into the transition from one to the other, is talking about the co-creation, right? So we're talking about co-creation. What about making a space for the youth to also be part of this co-creation? So I think the co-creation is already a good, let's say, way to start adding, let's say, society's inputs. But what about then having a special place for those? So this is just a kind of brainstorming as a possible way to then contributing to shaping, in the end, the policy, which is what we want to do, I guess.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what people think about that. I mean, do we want a special place where we talk to youth, or do we want youth to be part of the mainstream discussion? And yes, we facilitate your participation by providing support, by providing sort of training and sort of expertise, but we actually want you in the mainstream conversation, right? And one thing that's going on here now is that we've got this village. People in the office have been calling it the village people, the people who are sitting in areas around this building, who are the people who are actually working day to day on the preparation of Horizon Europe, from all the different DGs, across the whole of the Commission, and they are there to listen. They've been told to welcome people into the discussion as if it was in their own homes. And I think that, that's what that's an opportunity we should seize. And I hope that, we will welcome youth, representatives of SINTEF, and all of the rest of you, and the member states, the MEPs, to come and seize that opportunity. But, sorry, I'm monopolizing. Would you like to?
I would like to say something,
You may.
because I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. You don't. In Vancouver, I was in Vancouver as well as a Danish youth representative of sustainable cities, and we had a parallel youth program running alongside the Clean Energy Ministerial, which meant that there was an opportunity for young people to engage with policymakers, but there was also an arena where young people could take their own tools and engagement tools into the discussion and come up with new solutions. So we did policy hackathons and innovation jams where you get to sit in small youth groups, interdisciplinary youth groups, and come up with concrete solutions to existing issues. Policymakers would come in and present an issue, and we would come up with a solution to it in 1 or 2 hours. And it was just a completely different energy. And I think that's something we need to acknowledge. The two are not mutually exclusive if it's all about co-creation.
Okay, I'm now very happy that we have Anna Bartolo with us. I know it's very easy to get confused in this building and go round and round in circles. I hope that wasn't what happened. But we're now very happy to have you, and I'll now introduce you briefly to give your short introductory statement. You are a CEO of a company in Portugal specializing in building renovation, as I understand it. You're also design and building renovation. You're also a professor at the University of Setúbal in Portugal. So we're very happy to have you here, and please let us know your initial thoughts, and then we'll continue with our discussions. We're so far hear from our Greek gentleman here about cities, and we've heard from the youth representatives, and now we'll hear a little bit also from the world of business and perhaps academia.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm sorry, you are listening? Yes. I am a little tired because I came from the airport and it was too busy. But it's okay now. As it is already said, I am a structural engineering in my background, and I always make a bridge between my profession as an engineer with my profession in the academia. No, I never realized to be only a full professor in a university, because I think that things must be applied, but it's important, the knowledge, the rigor, and the science to make good projects, to get good solutions. And mainly nowadays that in Europe there is a very little new construction, at least in my country and in the southern countries of Europe in general, because of the financial crisis. And we are making mainly retrofitting of our buildings. And retrofitting is not only the structural retrofitting, we have to retrofit our cities in terms of energy, in order to get the population free of an energy poverty that, again, my country is the third country on the bottom line of the energy poverty, because energy is very expensive and people don't live well. This brings lots of problems of inclusivity, but also a lot of problems regarding the health of the populations, because the humidity, the particulate matters, all those substances that are nocive to the health, that has to be taken care of these problems. So energy is very expensive. Energy comes from sources that pollute the air, and a transition to a sustainable system of energy like the renewables energies is mandatory for the well-being of our citizens and for our planet, I think. I have some more message, but I think it's an introduction. It's enough for the panel.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. I think, again, there we heard from you about the synergies between two different worlds, which are really exceptionally important in order to make progress on this. And I think also very often we hear this message that fighting climate change is not it's not a sacrifice. It is actually an opportunity. It is something that creates enormous benefits and opportunities for lots of people, including for businesses. And all the analysis that we in the Commission have done show very clearly that the alternative, so not doing anything and just letting climate change happen, will be far, far, far more costly than fighting it. And fighting it is climate change effectively by replacing fossil fuels with renewables, being much more energy efficient in all areas, not just buildings, but also in transport, in industry and elsewhere, is actually in the long run beneficial also to the economy and to improving and increasing GDP. So I think that message is very well taken. Now, the microphone is still down there, so bear in mind that this is your opportunity to speak to everybody, including us up here. Please.
I'm Miguel. I come from Portugal also. Olá. I was also lucky to be in Vancouver with most of this youth here. And I would like to just to keep on the topic of cities. I'm currently finishing my master in energy for smart cities, and giving a fact that the new climate economy report of 2018, it was told that more compact, connected, and coordinated cities can worth $17 trillion on 2050 and save 3.7 gigatons of CO2 equivalent emissions per year in the next 15 years. But what is a connected, compact, and coordinated city? If you look at the city of Mr. Socrates, Saloniki, right?
Yes.
I will bet that the definition of this coordinated city would be different than the city of Stockholm or Oslo or Tampere in Helsinki or even Lisbon in Portugal. And we kind of need to combine, I would say, these kind of solutions between the cities. Because, for example, as in Scandinavian, they use maybe the heat and power generation, it's one way, and it's considered super efficient. In the south of Europe, they use another way, and they'll still sell it as the most efficient way. So I would like to open the discussion on how can we centralize this kind of, let's say, sustainable city in a European level and not only in a local level. Because I think it's kind of a really tough issue when selling it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for that. And I mean, it gives me an opportunity perhaps to just highlight the work of an expert group of which Anna's been a member and which been chaired by a very distinguished British academic, Charles Landry, on the human-centered city, opportunities for cities through research and innovation, which I think tries, perhaps the first time, to bring together the very many different strands of research and innovation as they impact on the transition challenges in cities, and which will be, I think, extremely valuable for us as we start to work on the development of the mission in Horizon Europe, specific mission devoted to the area of cities. So I absolutely agree with Miguel. I mean, if we can perhaps generate some ideas in the room about, in particular, how do we address the challenges of climate change, of sustainability, of urban poverty, of all the different sort of challenges in cities through research and innovation, and see what ideas we can come up with. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Federico from Italy. I was in Vancouver as well with this beautiful group of people. So I would like answering to the question to the practical solutions. And building upon what Heather said about lacking of funding, I think that the solution for our inclusion is incentives. Because we know that different countries support in a different way the youth. And we don't have any parameter that evaluates how each country is promoting youth. And so we know that Maria Gabriel, if I'm not wrong, is the new commissioner of youth and innovation, and Kadri Simpson of energy. So why don't we, if you can slip an email to them saying, why don't we think about something together? Because I think that in the end, youth are like renewable energy. It's a long-term investment, long-time investment. So it's about investing now. We are like sponges. We absorb energy, we absorb information. And private companies got that because they're doing that, but not the same of the public institution. Because you know that for public institution, it's really hard to climb the ladder unless we have some incentives, and public institutions are incentivized to welcome youth. So this would be a solution, and I would like to know if you're already thinking about it, and what do you think about incentives? So not incentives, incentivizing on people.
Well, I mean, we are welcoming our new commissioners, and Commissioner Gabriel among those in particular. And you'll find this hard to believe, but we prepared for her a briefing book which was this thick, and I mean it, this thick with double-sided pages, and all the stories of the successes of EU research and innovation and the opportunities. And we had a meeting with her yesterday to help her prepare for the hearing that she's going to have in the European Parliament next week. And she said to us, look, there's such amazing successes here that are so relevant for the lives of our citizens, for all of our citizens. We've got to find a better way of, getting this message across. And I think that, using all possible avenues, engaging with all different sort of groups in society, and I mean, given our new commissioner's personal background, she was a researcher herself in a university. She was then a member of the European Parliament, and now for a couple of years has been Commissioner for Digital Technologies, things like this, and is still, I think, one of the youngest members of the European Commission. And so I think she will be extremely receptive to the message that you've shared with us. Yeah, so I think there was a question at the back.
Hello, I'm David. I'm a research coordinator from Transport for London. So city's perspective and the transport perspective, which have both been mentioned here. And I think maybe this is one of the areas where we're missing a trick in energy research. Transport for London, already one of the biggest 4 or 5 electricity consumers in the UK. That just runs the tube, which is around about 12% of the energy consumption of transport in London. The rest, mostly hydrocarbons, which obviously, as a city, we're doing everything we can to get off our roads. Things like the zero emission zones, and it's probably no big secret to anybody who knows the sector that the ultra low emission zone in central London is just the start. That zone is going to get more restrictive, and it's going to get bigger, pushing more and more of that hydrocarbon transport into electric modes, hydrogen modes. We mustn't forget that. It's major infrastructure we're talking about to deliver all this, and it's an inclusion problem as well. How do we make sure that that transport is accessible to everybody in the cities? In all the cities of Europe, they're going to have to follow what London is up to in trying to get rid of all the cars and smelly diesel buses.
I don't know, Socrates, do you want to comment on that, how you're addressing that challenge?
Well, we're doing our best now because we're trying to put electromobility in our city with points and infrastructure for electric cars, scooters, bicycles, etc. the CO2 is one of the worst enemies in our world. So with this kind of technology, we went and with structures in buildings. We try to consume less and less energy every time. We are a little behind now. All the countries in the south of Europe are behind in this program, but I think we will proceed, and we're in the right way, the right path.
Perhaps I can just add, I think you're absolutely right to highlight the transport sector as a particular headache that we need to be able to really deal with. And I think the cities here have actually in many ways shown the way to go by creating these low emission zones. For example, also here in Brussels, I know several people live here in Brussels who have sold their old diesel cars because they were no longer able to drive them in a couple of years, and that actually is the kind of thing that drives the agenda forward. But I think there's much more to be done, and some of that also has to be done at national level. And if you look at the member states, the way they are sort of successful in driving, for example, electromobility, you will see huge differences. I saw, for example, in Norway, which is not a member of the EU, but in fact, I think half of the new cars sold today are full electric. I think that's a remarkable achievement, especially from a country which is actually one of the biggest producers of hydrocarbons. So I think that is something that we can learn from and see how it can be done, because there's so much more to be done there. And as long as we're not doing anything, we will just see the current trend of increasing emissions from transport that will just continue into the future. And in reality, make decarbonization not possible. That is the reality of it. So I think you're right to raise that point.
I would like to use this connection to present the work of the expert group, where I have been a member of that group during the last year, and I was one of the drafters exactly dedicated to the chapter Place. Place is focused on planning our cities, but within planetary boundaries, taking care of all the issues that that if we have to go behind the point of no return, it is a problem. No, this is what is the planetary boundaries of our world. And this document this chapter was written with renewables and energy efficiency at its core, taking attention to the building, the construction sector, to the mobility sector. All those areas of the cities and infrastructures were taken into consideration. It includes decarbonizing the city, foster circular economy thinking, to try to recover all those, as you said, all those vehicles that we have to leave behind, and what can we do with all this material that we are going to stop using, no? And create a built environment where we can breathe, with the pollution doesn't exist, with the noise is reduced to a level that doesn't affect the people's health and well-being. You can ask why are cities so important for this report of us, no? Cities, as you know, are the major consumers of natural resources and energy. To produce products and to produce services that are needed for in cities, for the cities to work. But at the same time, they are the biggest producers of waste, municipal waste mostly, and emissions. It's not only CO2, but all those other pollutions that are even more dangerous for the human health. 75% of the population in Europe lives in cities, and it's expected to rise to 85% in 2050, while consuming around 75% of the energy and spilling around 70% CO2 to the atmosphere. No? But at the same time, they have all these problems, but they are the key players to provide the good solutions for the cities. And if you think that they can be considered, at least the more developed ones, at hubs of technological and social innovation. But still we see that all these cities are struggling to make the transition to a sustainable economy. They have gaps on the knowledge, on the innovation, on the technology, on the collecting of data, and also governance issues at the level of the municipalities. The vision of our group for a successful city in this sense of the sustainability and of the well-being of the population passes by promoting the human-centered city concept. What we mean for that? What is for us a successful city of the future? City where citizens and organizations take responsibility for the social, for the economic development, and for the environmental requirements. For example, cities where the citizens safeguard natural resources, where the urban design promotes high-density cities in spread of long, large cities, because sprawl implies more resources, more energy, more pollution, more cars, more traffic. No? And also adoption of green architecture models and the use of renewable energy integrated in the infrastructures, the physical infrastructures, buildings and everywhere, integrated with mobility infrastructures, because electrical mobility is good for the environment, but it's an overcharge of electricity in the grid. It's more energy that is needed, and this has to be accomplished, as you were wondering, no? Integrate both the consume of the buildings and the consume of the mobility has to be done together into a smart grid that is able to take account of these issues. Also, cities that promote co-creation and cross-sectoral culture. This is a little bit for the city's administration. No, I think it is a problem. I see that as an engineer. It is always a problem that all the sectors, all the infrastructures of the cities are spread around the city, and the water doesn't speak with transportation, and transportation doesn't speak with energy. And all this has to be thought in an integrated and systemic way to be able, and it is necessary that the citizens want those solutions in order that they can be really implemented. A little bit as if the citizens are the clients of all these research and innovation issues and all this implementing of these ideas. Because it's the only way, if the citizens participate in the cities, it's the only way that these solutions can work, are tested, replicated, and scaled up. I would like also to raise the attention for a very important issue. Technology is important. It helps us. I'm a technological professional, no? But technology developments must be also human-centered. And I have here 2 or 3 examples. Cities have to create positive energy districts. What I mean for this is that the citizens has to be used, and they have the possibility to be producers. The word prosumers. They are not only consumers. We know in our houses we can have electricity coming from solar, and we cannot put it on the grid. it's not a way to integrate, to pay a lower bill because you produce energy. This is something to be careful. And the other issue, very important, is the energy efficiency of the buildings. The energy efficiency is an issue, is probably the most important issue to low emissions and to reduce energy consumption, but the transition to a clean energy must include people. People that is suffering in the first hand the knowledge of what is energy poverty, as I said in the beginning. They need the energy prices depend on every state, and the governance models must take care of those retrofittings on energy, because otherwise the low-income households will be left behind. And finally, to finish this, I would like to raise 3 or 4 impacts that I think that speak 2 minutes. I can say that, for example, a grid mix of 59–70% renewable energy by 2030 can be achieved and contribute to address energy poverty. Optimizing the efficiency in the buildings can close the gap to 20–55%, and passive house can reduce energy consumption to 90%. I think these are some of the aspects of our report that I think should be interesting. You can consult and...
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Anna. And I think indeed, I mean, I warmly recommend to all of you this excellent work, the excellent report, which covers many of these things. I think the 2 elements that I particularly take out of your presentation, Anna, is the human-centered, that we take the human being as the sort of starting and ending point of what we're doing, and the importance of breaking across silos and getting everybody working together and realizing that if we're to rise to some of the challenges that we're facing, we need a genuinely systemic approach, not just tackling different challenges in different areas. Now we're going to give Lynette a moment to collect her thoughts. I want to have at least 1 or 2 interventions from this side of the room just to test that the microphone works over here as well. But then we'll come to you. Okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
So who'd like to throw the microphone to someone who's got their hand up on that side? You will not hide in darkness.
Okay, I'll just throw it then. So.
Yeah, just throw it and let someone... Are you okay? So we do have a first aid department but no, you're okay.
I'm okay.
But would you like to make a contribution to this discussion?
A bit confused with just the heat, but yeah, I'm a bit surprised. I have to admit. I'm coming from energy field, also working now with research, and I have also realized the importance of integrating different sectors, and also the focus on an integrated approach, because somehow even inside energy, inside renewables, inside energy efficiency, sometimes we are very, very focused in one specific technology, one specific solution, and it's really a big deal to get across and try to think together and try to find solutions. And this is something we see that the Commission is pushing for, that we all have to have a systematic approach. But I have to admit that today I'm a bit surprised that even I was not thinking about the youth aspect of the story. There are also other areas, and I think what Anna was mentioning, the including citizens in the solutions is really, really important. So just coming back to just one thing to mention, I think when we go back to our specific field, because most of us is working in very little tiny bit of that area,
I think we have to always see the big picture. So that's my contribution after the...
No, well, thank you, and I hope you feel better soon.
Microphone is functioning.
So Hans, and then we'll let the other colleagues.
I think that was very impressive after having been hit like that. But I think you're absolutely right to talk about this thing about sector integration, because this is now one of the buzzwords in energy policy. It has different sort of words for it: sector coupling, sector integration, smart integration. I think the mission letter of the new Energy Commissioner, Mrs. Simpson, talks about smart integration, and we're trying to figure out what that precisely means, but probably that's sector integration done in a smart way, we assume. But I think that also has to be reflected in many ways on the R&I side. It is no good that we are looking at synergies on the policy side, trying to look for solutions which serve transport, heating and cooling and electricity at the same time, and that the R&I side is not following suit. So I think that's a very good point, and I think should be one of the key priorities in the next Horizon program.
Okay, thanks, Heather.
And I think you probably defined interactive presentation, so I'm so sorry for that. I think if I could interject about inclusivity with policy making, especially, if you look, I think what we forget about decarbonising the transport sector is that by applying a carbon price, we can accelerate that transition. But if that policy's badly designed without a view to protecting those who are weakest and poorest in our society, then it fails, like the Gilets jaunes movement. I mean, it was an entirely valid motive to create the policy, but the fuel tax fell on the poorest. So if you look at, I think what we can do is we can look at our international friends and allies for good case studies of how to apply certain policies. I think in line with your point, Miguel, about how different cities require different solutions. That also means that we have a variety of solutions that we can, and case studies that we can pick from. So in terms of that carbon pricing example, I think Alaska, they have I can't remember the name of it, but they have a common fund that fossil fuel companies pay into that gets given out to national infrastructure projects and also to communities. And that kind of alleviates some tension. Also carbon tax and dividend as well. Direct payments to households is another way to overcome community groups and other minority groups who might oppose certain policies going forward. So just having this inclusive perspective in everything we do.
Okay, well, look, thanks for that. And I think, Lynette, now you can capture the essence of this discussion in the remaining 3 minutes. Okay?
At least I will try. I will do my best. I think there has been so many great points during this discussion, so I hope I will manage to touch upon them all. I think first, take a look around. There's so many people here. There are actually more people here than I expected there to be, which means that this is clearly something people are engaged in. It's something people care about, both young people and more established people. And I think that's a really important point to take forward, because here you will probably notice that you're sitting amongst people who are doing other things than yourself. This is a room we want to create. If we want to create co-creation, this is a room where we can learn from each other, and that has clearly, for me, been the main point from this discussion, that we need co-creation in order to come up with solutions that will make it possible to decarbonize Europe by the middle of this century. Furthermore, there has been a point of the sustainable city or sustainable clean energy future not only being technical, but it's also human-centered. And I think that's also what we're trying to reach with this co-creation, that you're bridging the gap between science and social science. I'm a social scientist myself, and the reason why I got engaged in sustainability in the first place was I felt there was a need for more social scientific voices. One thing is coming up with the clean energy solutions. Another thing is making sure that they have a public buy-in and that they will be just, that they will contribute to a just transition. And I made one last point, which I hope I can find now. Breaking the silos, basically, which is what these spaces serve. They will be a great place to break the silos. And I've been working with it myself during my studies, where youth got engaged in coming up with solutions to making Edinburgh more sustainable, to accelerate the clean energy transition in Edinburgh by creating a sustainability hub where people with knowledge of clean energy could meet the artists who were very concerned with the environmental impact of their activities, but they just didn't know how to act upon it. So the people who have the knowledge of how to do things are often not in contact with the people who actually want to do things, but not knowing how to do things. And I think that has kind of also come across here, that we need to create more of these spaces where people can discuss and share best practices and move forward. I hope that was fine.
That was great. No,
Okay.
really, thank you very much. And thanks to everyone. Thanks to all of you being here. Thanks to our panelists. And I mean, this conversation is just beginning. I mean, we have now 3 days ahead of us, and we can meet and discuss in all sorts of different formations. So thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of the day and the few days ahead.